What's going on, guys? Fate here, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm here to bring you guys the SDL Season 14 Wooper Power Rankings, and I'm with my boy Dylan.
Yo, what's up, y'all?
So, to preface this, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. However, if we think your team is bad or even ass, we will say it. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that is right. We're not holding back on these teams because we know this is the bottom div. There's not that many great teams to be had.
Right. And we may say some things that you disagree with. So uh, just don't get too offended, I guess.
Yeah, if there's anything you disagree with, feel free to drop a comment. Let us know.
Right.
If you have a different opinion.
Exactly. And then also, there have been some transactions since we put together the list, so we might differ on things that are in here now, like after the transactions have been made. But I think that's enough. Let's just go ahead and get straight into 16.
Yes, sir.
So 16, Diamond Brady B. And we're not going to list all the mons that are on the team because we have it on the screen. But Diamond Brady B is utilizing Baxcalibur here. Now, Dylan, tell me what you think about sort of how he surrounded Baxcalibur.
So Bax Caliber can be used very well as a primary breaker or a setup sweeper. However, there are not other mons that are allowing it to break outside of Gengar and maybe Heracross. And after that, you have three repetitive spikers with Ting Lu, Klefki, and Heracross, which is not a good combination overall. If you're trying to surround Bax Caliber with things that can also break, or if Bax breaks, then allow Sedmon to sweep.
Yeah, so let me jump in here. Baxcalibur is obviously a great mon. I think Baxcalibur is incredible, but the rest of the team I just really don't like that much. I think Ting Lu for 15 points in the second round, round two, a little bit of a reach probably. Klefki is pretty redundant on this team because we already have Ting Lu, Quagsire, and Heracross to do the same shit. Yeah, Klefki's probably the best at it, but Klefki's really shit at other stuff. At least the other mons can do other things. Gengar's good, really good actually. Probably the other saving grace of this team. Oricorio in round five is really atrocious. Serena probably a pretty good pickup, to be honest with you. But I just really I think there's a lot of redundancy going on with this team. And then in terms of like actual good breakers, you're just really looking at Max Caliber as like an actual really good breaker. Gengar solid, but um, it's not always going to be incredible in every matchup. And Heracross is average as a good breaker, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's very subjective matchup wise.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then even later on, you see Jolteon and Rotom Heat. I think there's no reason to pick up both, to be honest with you. Floatzel's a really good pickup, though, that late in the draft for only 3 points. We definitely let that slip through the cracks. But
Yeah.
yeah, honestly, I would say this team pluses is it has really, really good hazard control, which a lot of the other teams in Wooper struggle with. But I just don't like its breaking power at all, and I think there would be a lot better ways to sort of diversify what the team is able to do. Because right now, I think the team is really only good at that hazard control, and outside of that, it's not very good, to be honest with you. You have
Yeah,
any more to add?
correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a Zapdos Galar sitting in free agency.
Uh,
That mon could be very beneficial to this team.
I think that could help a lot. Honestly, I would drop the Heracross probably, and I'd probably drop the Rotom Heat because that's soaking up a lot of points, um,
Yeah.
and it's just not very good, frankly. So that's what I would do. I think to try to fix up this team because, like I said, it just really doesn't seem that diverse, and there's a lot of redundancy going on. I would probably also drop the Klefki, but I don't rate Klefki very highly to begin with either.
Yeah, and also just overall the team pick wise very questionable. But
Yeah, for
let's
sure.
move let's move on to the 15th ranked team in Whoop.
All right,
And
so we got Zanfried.
that is Zanfried, yes.
So, I actually kind of quite enjoy his first like four picks. I think King Gambit, Lando, Salamence is great. Sylveon I'm a little bit more iffy on, but for only 10 points, I think it's solid. After that, though, I don't fuck with this
It's
very
very
much.
downhill.
Yeah, after that, I really do not fuck with it. I think Inteleon is probably pretty good. And Salazzle's pretty good. I don't think you ever need both on the same team though, because they're
Yeah,
both just incredibly squishy mons that also leave a little bit to be desired in terms of damage output. To be honest with you, so I don't think you need both, and they're also a very similar speed tier. I don't think you need both at all.
yeah, and then also on top of that, having two base 100s with a Tauros, Aqua, and a Mence, which obviously Mence is fine, but then on top of that, you're doubling up on the water type you already have on the team. So
Yeah, I mean, I
it's
think having Tauros and Inteleon is fine, and even having Mence and Tauros is fine. I actually think that's like one of the stronger points of the team, is having
mhm.
that or that triple intimidate is really really cool. But I just think that uh, if we like sort of shift and look at the hazard game here, we have no removal, which is really really ass.
Yeah, absolutely zero removal, which is incredibly
Yeah,
horrendous.
and then I just think that having to rely on Inteleon or Salazzle as your only speed is really really rough. In terms of breakers, King Gambit, Lando T, Mence can probably serve just fine though, which is why I think we both think this team is higher than the other one because it just has better breakers,
Yeah.
overall higher utility throughout the team because I think the team is a little bit more diverse despite having worse hazard control.
Yeah, even with the bottom half that we were saying isn't great, you still have options with Rotom, defensive Uxie, and Tauros just to be able to soak up hits and give some give some variation with the team so you can, you turn out with Uxie after taking a hit and go into one of your breakers.
But yeah, I think that's all that we have to say. We don't want to spend too much time on each team here, so let's go ahead and move on to 14, where we have Awesome DK. What do you think about Awesome DK's team?
Uh, Trash. Let's move on.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's a somewhat decent team, but just like the top two great picks. Volcarona, Iron Bundle, you cannot go wrong with those. But after that is where it starts to get a little bit questionable, especially with the round, was that six Tauros? Kind of necessary if you ask me.
Yeah, so honestly, if I had to give you my reasoning for this team being so low, it's that outside of bundle, I think the breakers are really bad. Like Volcarona can be a breaker, but I think most times, especially with it being your Terramon, you're gonna want it to function as a win condition. So you don't want to let it get chipped, etc., etc. Mew can have really great matchups, can have really shit matchups. So Mew, um, well, it's good or it's either great or like kind of shit. Donphan
Yeah,
is actually really good hazard control. I really fuck with that pick. Breloom, I've never seen it really have success in draft. It can be a good breaker, but I
it
don't
just lacks.
I don't see it. Azu, um, honestly, also can leave some power to be desired. To be honest with you, so really outside
Yeah.
of bundle, I do not love the breakers on this team. However, I will say the top end speed is really good with Iron Bundle, and then you also have some decent options after that. Although also leaves a little bit to be desired, if I'm honest.
Honestly, I don't know about decent, but it's there.
It's there. It's actually pretty ass though.
Yeah, you go 100, 100 to 70.
Well,
Because I'm
that too,
I'm
and the
ignoring Tauros.
100s, the base 100s don't want to get scarfed either. To be
Th-
honest,
Yeah, they do not. You do not want to be locking Volcarona or Mew into a move because they have so much more versatility than that with Quiver Dance and DD respectively.
yeah, or any setup options that Mew gets,
Yeah.
obviously, or Mew's hazard options. Tons of things. But yeah, honestly, for me, this team just has really limited breaking power. But I think there's a chance that we have this a little lower than maybe it should be.
Yeah,
Just
there's definitely potential with this team if played properly, but it's just hard to fathom that at this current moment.
that is crazy. but but I do think it has pretty good potential just because of the Volcarona and the bundle, and then you have good enough pieces to surround that with a team that can set those mons up to win the game later on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to 13. We have a
All right.
Rapmon.
Now this team right here, at first glance, looks okay. But then you realize Iron Treads is not that good of a mod.
Yeah, so
And
so Iron Treads is like uh gosh, I think that it's a do nothing mon in a lot of matchups. However, I won't get too subjective with my opinions here. I just think Iron Treads is objectively a reach in round one for 15 points. I don't think it's good enough to be taken in round one. Um, and then
after that, though, Annihilate, very solid.
yeah,
Cleaver, very solid.
I don't
Even
think
Screamtail, defensively, pretty good.
I'm about to hate again. I don't think Cleaver's very good either.
Uh, I think it's all right. You get free rocks with it for most games, and it's chipping out good damage if you band it or give some type of boosting item to it because it does have a decent enough speed tier where it can outspeed a lot of the tanking mons that are going to be the ones taking hits
Yeah,
from the Annihilate.
I guess so. But this team lacks immediate breaking power like really badly.
Yeah, it,
Because
it does because outside of maybe banning Cleaver, which does lacks power, as much as I do like it, it still leaves a little bit to be desired. Talonflame isn't breaking anything. Annihilate needs setup, and that includes getting hit from getting chip on it in order to help it break.
yeah,
And then after that, you're just relying on very situational matchups for some of these mons.
your best breakers are Cleaver and Arcanine Hisui, which Um, they're both like mid-priced mons, which means that there's going to be matchups where they just frankly aren't going to be good enough. And same thing with Tornadus, which is probably the next best breaker, and they're
Yeah.
just frankly not going to be good enough in some matchups, and that's going to be really tough on Annihilate to have to try to carry that, uh, carry you to the win when it really sometimes, especially if your opponent is playing well around Rage Fist, it really needs that chip. If you only get hit once or twice, Rage Fist isn't that strong. You really need that chip to help Annihilate get the win, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to be very doable with this team.
Yeah, it's really hard to not have top tier breakers when you draft an ape and try to win games because ape needs things to be chipped down because you can't solely rely on yourself taking chip in order to win a game because that could cost you.
Yeah. Additionally, there's going to be some games where the setup set just won't work, like in certain matchups, and you have to go Scarf, which is going to make it even harder to to try to win.
Yeah.
So I just think that this team needs to get some immediate breaking power really badly. What I would do is probably try to transfer some of the points from, because you have three flying types. I'd probably try to transfer some of those points, and keep whatever flying type you want to keep the most, and try to transfer those points into a better breaker for like
Yeah.
pretty high points. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
But
And
I think that's all we have to say about it. It does have pretty good hazard control, which is good. Speed is like pretty good as well, for the most part. So I think that was done well.
yeah,
All right, moving on to number 12. We have JT.
this is the Sun team with no sun.
Yeah, so we have Great Tusk, Walking Wake, which would both benefit greatly from just having a Sun option on the team. And then we also have round three Florges ass, unfortunately. Hate to say it. Sizz, great pickup. But from there, I actually think Azelf is really good as well. I fuck with Azelf. Um, but from there, I don't fuck with much.
Yeah, I mean Moltres used to be good, but it has fallen off since I believe it did lose Defog, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Yeah, and
Actually, I don't know if it did. I could be capping.
okay. We could be lying, but
I
who
could be
knows?
capping.
And
We
Weavile just lacks that breaking power, just so
Weavile's
sweet.
obviously ass.
Yeah, I mean it could be good, but again, like we were saying with the other teams, it's these lower like mid-tier point mons that are situational matchups. Where in one game it might have a great matchup and it can do some work, but week after it might not be able to do anything just because of the matchup. You need to have something that can consistently hit in every week and not just rely on, hey, this might work, this might not work.
Yeah, I also think just that some of his bulk that he's gonna have to rely on, like Florges, Arbolivia, I don't fucking know.
which I believe might have been dropped, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
you can take a look, but Moltres as well. I think sometimes those mons are gonna be do nothing mons in a matchup where your opponent's gonna be able to take advantage of them. Um, which kind of just comes down to me not liking those mons, to be fair. But it's a subjective power ranking, so we
Okay,
we get to
I
do that.
lied. There was an attempt to drop it.
Okay, but
Oh no, no, sorry, sorry, no, I'm tripping. Oh, so apparently he had
all right. Well,
nope,
I'm
I
gonna
am
keep talking
confused.
about the team.
Yeah, go for it.
But yeah, I just think some of the mons are do nothing, and you have really good breaking power, obviously with Great Tusk, Walking Wake, and Sizz, and some really good top end speed. I think with Azelf and even Weavile. Um, but for me, there's just not enough backbone on this team to make it reliable enough to be a higher on this list.
Yeah, because there's not many mons that can come in and take two hits
No,
from the top tier mons in this format.
right, and the ones that can, like I mentioned, I think are do nothing mons, and you might get taken advantage of because of that.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to number 11 here, where you got Pablo.
Pablo. Now this is where the team started to pick up just ever so slightly,
I
in my
agree.
opinion.
So I'll go ahead and
Um,
take I'll take it first here. So obviously
yeah,
Reggie Alecki is incredible, and it's gonna be something that your opponent has to really prep for every single week. I think it's a great mon. I think pairing it with Grimmsnarl is also really good, to be honest with you, because it's gonna. Sometimes it lacks the power thanks to the nerf of its ability, and it's only base 100 stats. So sometimes it's gonna lack the power, and obviously with its defenses being so low, sometimes it can't take a hit. So I think pairing it with Grimmsnarl is really good. Um, and then even having Urshifu and Saraledge after that, which are both mons that I would like to set up behind the screens, is also really good. I will say Grimmstar round two, probably a reach, but I think it works out considering the mons that he has. However, Urshifu and Saraledge are also probably reaches at that point in the draft, so there's that.
yeah, and also on top of that, there is not necessarily a lack of, but a not great hazard options. Yes, you do have Orthworm and Toadscroll, but those are non-mods that are coming every week. They again, back to the situational stuff. You may be able to bring it one week, but it's Urshifu, and at least in my opinion, Urshifu, Sarah and even Regieleki. They rely on having some type of chip on most mons on the team in order to come in and clean up.
Well, I don't
And
know if Urshifu does because that mon is broken, but the other
true,
two
but
do.
yeah,
The other two do for
yeah,
sure. I think
yeah.
really
So
like
you
having
need
some
to have
chips.
something, spike, whether it be a spike, rocks, layer of T spikes, something to chip the other mons down. So you're able to clean up. And unfortunately, that team does lack it to the slightest extent.
Now I will say there's probably a pretty strong likelihood that you can run just the Grimmsnarl screen shit most weeks, and it's gonna be able to put in the work, you know,
Yeah,
um, which is definitely going to um, make make things a little bit easier and prep for you, obviously, but it's also gonna lessen the effect of having bad hazards. I think because you can run the Grimmsnarl screen shit pretty often, and then you just have to pair Amuga, Cyclizar, and maybe Cress, Orthorn, or Toadscroll, right? And you're gonna
yeah,
have a pretty good time, I think, honestly.
yeah. The only problem is it going to become too predictable?
Right, and that would
Because
be an issue too. So I think really it comes down to this team being so low is just because of the potential predictability and lack of variation possibilities with this team.
yeah,
But like I said, I do think the Grimmsnarl screens is definitely going to be able to pick up some wins, and I think it can be pretty strong.
yeah. There is a good overall, um, at least offensive wise. I'm blanking on the word right now. Synergy with this team,
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go down, move on to number 10.
and this is where we have Chien Pao
S-
making its appearance.
So Chien Pao is probably a top 3 mon minimum in this format. So picking up Chien Pao obviously is going to be a huge boon for Prince of Underworld. No doubt about it.
However, after that, that at least in my opinion is where things get sketchy. Because as good as Garg and Skeldridge are, they are more so defensive than offensive mons. And as we continue to go down the line of this team, Gyarados isn't going to be that great of a breaker unless it can get some setup. Lilligant is good, but again, with these mid-tier mons, there are situational matches where Lilligant might not be as good.
Well,
Thunderous, great mon, have no problem with it. But having that as your only breaker next to Shampoo is not the greatest, in my
well,
opinion.
here's what I'll say actually, in counter to that, because I actually think me and Dylan had a pretty big disagreement on this. I think we were like four
We
spots
did.
away from each other.
Yeah.
I think Champao and Thunder's T are more than enough breaking power, to be honest. And then you also have Gyarados and Lilligant Hisui, which can be win conditions most weeks. And then Garganacl and Skeledirge, despite sharing the ground weakness, they're the Terra Mons. So most of the time, they really shouldn't share many weaknesses, which means you should have a pretty strong backbone here as well to the team. And I wish you had a little bit better of a Mon with high special defense, because both Skeledirge and Garg have pretty poor special defense. But overall, I think the top 6 is really pretty good, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I do think that the lack of hazard removal on the team
Yeah.
is going to really hinder it. And if it had a good removable instead of, honestly, Bisharp and Scoville, I think are pretty bad, just straight up. So
Yeah.
I think if you had good hazard removal instead of those, I think this team could find itself way higher.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just, obviously there are things lacking on this team, but there's a lot that you can build off of with this as well.
Yeah, and one more thing to mention though about Garganacl for in round 2 is that it can definitely get shut down by a certain item that we may know. And I think that's just pretty unfortunate to go round 2. However, I think if you get creative with the Garganacl sets and you use like truly like kind of offensive curse shit, you're gonna have a good time, I think, despite that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I have mostly positive things to say about this team outside of the hazard control and even the hazard setup.
Yeah. I slightly disagree there, but at the end of the day, it is still a solid team overall in comparison to the other teams we have shown.
Hey yo, why the fuck does it say Quillfish is 106 speed?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
anyways,
let's move.
to number 9, we got 877 with the Sneasler Espathra core. What do you think about this?
Hold on, I'm still tripping
About Quillfish?
about Clovis, bro.
That Quillfish is fast as fuck.
Uh,
Fastest Quillfish I ever seen.
Hey, I would have drafted it if it was 106. Hold on now.
On me.
Uh, no, but as far
That's
as
an
the
Emerson speed. Why did it get an Emerson speed? Whatever.
moving on. um, I do like the top 3 as far as a core, very solid for draft.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, because you have the terrain, you have the speed boost with Esprata, right? That's how you say it.
Espathra.
Espatra.
Sound it
And
out. Sound
obviously,
it out.
No, Sneasler's a good mon. But then after that, it's why Moltres Galarian in round 4.
Whoa.
No, you disagree on that?
Okay, well, round 4 is probably a stretch, but I think Moltres Galar is a great bond, to be honest with you.
I think it's okay, but I mean, it's heavily reliant on either slapping with a specs on it or uh I forget like having a nasty plot type set.
I mean, usually what you see on it is like really specialized EVs.
Oh yeah, that's true.
With agility and plot, and then you just try to set it up pretty much perfectly, and you can win the game.
Yeah.
But it also doubles as a really good breaker, and that's what I'll say about this team. I think it has really good breakers, and it has really good win cons. Like 3 of the top 4 can win the game from any point of the game. I think,
Yeah,
and I think that's really valuable when you also pair that with Sneasler and Moltres also being able to break really well. Crook, Volcanion, and Haxorus also being able to break really well. I think that's
especially
really
with the
incredible.
Terra hacks too.
Exactly. Um, and then I'll
Oh,
say this as well. I think since this team has the ability to be so offensive, the lack of hazard removal isn't as big of a deal, but it definitely still can be an issue.
yeah, and even the lack of hazards with it as well.
Yeah. And
Like,
then in terms of like revenge killers, I don't think you have a lot of good revenge killers because your best option in most weeks, unless you are confident in bringing Electrode every week, is going to be Espathra. That's your fastest mon, but a lot of times you want Espathra to be built really bulky, um, so you can really get the setup sets going as best as possible. Um, and then also, Espathra is only 105 speed, so you almost have to run Protect to get the speed boost, which also becomes predictable. So I do think the revenge killers is where this team might lack the most.
yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, overall,
But
I think this team has really good breakers and good win cons, and it's going to be able to use that offensive prowess.
yeah, it's definitely very HO based. You know, not much on the defensive side, but you can get away with that in Wooper.
I would also agree with that, and not even in just Wooper, but in this format in general. I think it's
Yeah,
very very get awayable with.
yeah.
All right,
Next up, we have Soup.
all right. So Soup has Chi-Yu. Um, I don't love Chi-Yu to be honest with you, but I think he was able to surround it pretty well with the Torkoal. So
Yeah, not just that Torkoal, but also the other surrounding mons with Enamorus, who I believe is very underrated.
yeah,
That Enamorus staring goes crazy.
yeah, it's definitely a really strong Pokemon.
Yeah, and then just having Clodsire is a very good defensive mon. You have Hisui. Well, you have Samurott as your only. Well, no, you have Samurott and Claude as your hazard setters, as well as Torkoal. But Torkoal, you know, sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I
But
think the hazard control is perfectly good
it,
on this team for sure.
it,
Like
it
both
is, yeah,
setting up and removal.
it's very solid. Yeah, just it's a solid overall team. I just think it lacks just some offensive prowess though, because outside of what Slitherwing in the Sun and
Chi-Yu.
some variation of Lucha, and obviously Chi being there. It's hard without setting up to have some offensive breakers.
Well, I also don't fuck with his speed because I don't fuck
Oh
with
yeah,
Lucha.
118 though. Yeah, 118.
I don't fuck with
Having
Lucha
Lucha as your fastest mon is,
without terrain.
yeah, with no terrain is it's a choice.
And honestly, that's my issue with it. Now, obviously, Chi-Yu's like really strong, so you probably run Scarf a lot. But sometimes you want to switch moves. And sometimes you want to have boots. So
Yeah.
you know, I think that I just wish honestly I would drop Lucha straight up for some other mons immediately.
Zapdos.
I'll drop it immediately for some other mons for sure.
Man.
Um, and yeah, that's what I would do. But overall, this team's kind of hard to rank because it's really going to come down to how you can pilot Chi-Yu and get it into positions where it can just blow teams up.
Yeah.
But I think we've
All right.
exhausted really what could be said here.
We did.
All right, number
All right.
7. We're on the
We got
top half, like for sure now. So
yeah. So the teams are gonna look much better. We'll have less complaints going forward. Um, but not on this one. This one has a very big complaint. Would you like to take it, Fate?
now tell me your complaint.
Complaint? Lack of hazards, bro. It's
Like
just
like hazard setup or hazard removal?
setup.
I disagree.
Oh no, wait, I'm tripping. There's a Meowscarada right there.
And Fortress.
A Fortress don't count, bro.
Yeah,
That thing is setup fodder.
Fortress is pretty ass.
That thing is setup fodder for days.
Yeah,
I will
it's
say,
pretty ass.
I will say, I do love the top three picks, with the Palafin, Meowscarada, and Iron Moth. Just so much breaking power and even, potential cleanup power with just those three mons. It's really hard to be, or it's going to be really hard for teams to be able to prep for all three of those.
Yeah, and even Hat can add some extra breaking power with that.
Oh yeah, I know about
Yeah,
that.
you know all about Hat. So I honestly think that's pretty solid. And I know about Hat too. If you see my TDT game, sheesh. Didn't get a
Yeah.
start after that. Um, so I think this team is really good. I love the top three. I think Reggie Drago is a super steal. I picked it up in Claude Sire. I think it's a super steal, and I think that's great. I just think this team picks up a lot of good value options, like Braviary. I think is a really good value option. I don't really fuck with Lucario, but sure. Um, honestly think though that the top three plus Hat plus Drago and then one of your other Mons is going to be just pretty incredible.
Yeah. Um, I remember what my gripe with this team was, and it wasn't hazards. The lack of defensive ons on this team. That's what it was.
Yeah, so there is for sure a
Yeah.
lack of defense on this team. If you really look at it, your best like true switch into things that isn't Fortress because Fortress is ass.
Is like Hatter to Dunsparce.
Yeah, honestly, even Palafin. Um,
And Bell.
I'm serious. Go look at Palafin's defensive stats.
No,
It
you're
was
not wrong. It's just crazy to say that.
yeah, but that for sure could be an issue.
Yeah, keep in mind, just a preface, we probably should have said this. We made these rankings about a week ago, and now we're actually making the video for it, so some things may be
It might have slipped through.
misremembered.
It might have slipped through the cracks. But listen,
Yeah,
uh, yeah, this team definitely has a weakness with the defensive issues. However, I think it's so much better offensively than a lot of teams behind it that it's going to be able to just transcend those issues and be
yeah.
pretty solid.
All right, next up we got Fixed.
We got Fixed. So Fixed has a really good team
Oh,
until
this was the team.
until
This
you
was the
look
team.
at the speed column.
Yeah.
So the speed column, if we ignore that for a little bit and we just say Dragonite, Heatran, Enamorus, Landorus, Toxapex is ass, but let's ignore the pecs. And we just look at that pure breaking power of D-Knight, Enamorus, Landorus, Hoopa Unbound. It's pretty unmatched.
Yeah, it's pretty broken. I'm not gonna. I don't know who let this happen, but it's pretty broken.
However, we do have to say the speed tiers are pretty fucked up, and by fucked up I mean really bad. Um, your fastest Mon is Enamorus at 106, which can run Scarf, but you obviously never want to be forced into Scarf on one Mon every week. That's really bad.
Yeah.
And you obviously have the Dragonite with the E speed. However, it's very, I don't want to say easy to prep for, but it can get predictable, and your opponent can obviously run Terra Ghost on their own Terra types. So it could get to a point where you're gonna really struggle with this type of speed.
Yeah, and to top it off, not just the speed, but the lack of removal is it's not great. It's
Yeah,
not great with
yeah. Not having any removal is really rough when you have Enamorus, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Having Pex as a ground poison actually could be clutch though, and overall pretty good hazard setup. I think it's just
Yeah.
having no removal is pretty rough. To be honest with you, how I would make this team better is I'd drop the Magnezone, probably, and I would think about retooling the Pex and the Hoopa. I think as well.
Yeah, Hoopa's very interesting with this team. I mean, I personally don't think it has a spot on this team, but it could work. I believe in certain matchups, but I just think it's kind of redundant having that breaking when already having an Amorous, D-Knight, and Lando. It's a little over the top. But I
Yeah,
guess that's never a bad thing when it comes to breaking.
yeah, for sure. I think the main way I would try to retool the team is dropping Magnezone Pex and definitely just try to get speed and then turn the leftover points into the best utility you possibly can turn it into.
Yeah,
Because obviously losing Pex would make the team a lot more frail. So
it would. Yeah, that's why I think me personally, the Hoopa would be the one to go.
yeah, maybe. But I would exchange what it's like some combination of those three probably. But
Yeah, just to get some more speed, some more bulk, and even just a removal.
But overall, this team, I think, is very solid. And even with the speed issues, it's all the way at 6 just because I think with this type of breaking power, the Wooper division is definitely going to struggle to deal with it.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. All
Looks
right.
like that's all we got for fixed team. So we're going to move to number 5, or we got
All
Day
right.
X.
Well, you're in the top five now. Now this team, would you like to take the reins on this? Because I know one of these mons is like your go-to.
Who's the go-to for me?
Glim.
I do. Okay, listen. I fuck with some Glim occasion on occasion on occasion. Um,
Past two drafts.
so one thing about this team has really incredible hazard setup with Grin, Glim, Hippowdon, Tyranitar. That's just really, really good hazard setup, and also has removal with Glamora, and it has the best anti-removal with Goldango. So
Yeah, though this may visually not look like the past two teams we saw where it was heavy breakers and sweepers, this team just the balance is just there.
yeah, I agree. And since it's going to be able to really utilize those hazards, because with Goldango, it's going to be hard to get those off, and then also with the whole team being able to put pressure. Like I don't think any of the mons or do nothing. I think they all put pressure on the opponent. It's going to be hard to ever get hazards removed, and that's going to make it way easier for some of the weaker mons, weaker fast mons like Greninja or Thunderous to really, really, and Noivern to really, really put in work.
Yeah. Just the breaking even on this team between, like you said, Gren, but even Goldango, Thunderous, and Noivern, and even
I
T-Tar.
was just saying,
I
let's not
wish
forget about fucking T-Tar.
T-Tar is gonna go stupid in some of these matches just because you're so busy preparing for these top end mons. You don't realize that there's a T-Tar sitting at the back, and it can come in and put in that work. I really wish that it was a Terramon on this team, to be honest, because it would go stupid.
Yeah, and I also say, Dylan mentioned this a little bit ago, but the balance on this team is really, really good. Most of the teams really have had a really poor backbone, if we're being frank about it. But with Hippowdon and Tyranitar, you're going to be able to switch into a lot of stuff, and Tauros. Unfortunate that they all share the water weakness, but I guess we have Brute Bonnet to help take care of that. I think what I would do is maybe consider dropping Noivern for a bulky water to pair with Greninja to really make sure that you're good on that water weakness.
Yeah. Or even a grass type too.
Well, he has
Well, I
Brute.
mean, yeah, Bonnet, never mind.
But yeah, that's what I would probably do is just get a secondary water type to pair with Gren. But overall, I think this is by far the best team so far. Like I think number 5 and on, there's a pretty sizable gap.
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of these teams before five were very one-dimensional, and you're gonna start to see the diversity in the teams once we go forward.
But yeah, I think we've pretty much talked up DayX, DayX's
Yeah.
team as much as we could, and I think it's time to move on to number 4.
Number four, Martin.
So Martin has a big Shifu single. Tell me about
Yeah.
Shifu single.
Oh, I've had plenty of experience with that mon. I love that mon. That mon is broken. It's so it's so versatile. Even like you can have SD sets with it. You could have an AV and just hit moves with it too. It's so good, bro. And pairing it with Cinderace on top of that as a secondary breaker. Whew, give me some of that.
Yeah, and then it's sort of similar to DayX's team. We actually have a pretty good backbone here with Corviknight and Slowking Galar, which is a lot better than pretty much any other team could say up to this point. And we also have extremely, extremely good pivoting with all top 5 mons, and I think Vaporeon might still get flip turn 2, so it might be top 6, all being able to pivot, which is, I think, going to be really strong in Wooper when maybe the maybe your opponents are a little bit more unpredictable at this stage, just because they're a little bit more off the wall, maybe don't know the optimal play every time. Um, so I think having that level of pivoting is going to be great.
Yeah, like just this team overall is very solid, but the only question mark I have with it is the lack of hazards. Like obviously Sandy Shocks gets access to rocks and spikes, but after that, what is it? Does Wu Chen does it get access to hazards?
Fuck if I know.
And even then, right? Like exactly, it's not a mon you're gonna be bringing most times. So I mean, just me personally, I would like to have just some type of, put down a layer of spikes or have a layer of rocks. Especially when you have Urshifu and Cinderace, and even to a certain extent, Slowking Galar can put in that offensive work despite being known as a defensive mon.
Yeah, for sure. And the only way I'd really improve this team is probably try to retool the bottom half, but I think the top five are maybe the best top five in Wooper. So
Yeah.
I would just maybe look at retooling the bottom half, but really just the backbone plus Sandy Shock's being able to get up the hazards with Urshifu and Cinderace being able to break. I just think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead
All
and
right.
move on to number 3, where we got Kairak. Now, this team is a little bit, I guess, divisive maybe. Um, I think this team is really relying on Zamazenta Crowned a lot. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that because what's your next breaker? Lycanroc Dusk? And then that's about it, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
Zapdos, you want. I mean, on this team, it doesn't necessarily have to be run defensive, but I mean, more times than not, you are going to have some bulk variant.
Listen. I'm an offensive Zapdos truther. You should run
Oh,
1052, special attack, and click Hurricane. I don't go fuck. If you miss, you're a
uh,
Zapdos. You're not going to get one shot.
that is a very good point, but
But
me
yeah,
me personally, I wouldn't rely on that every time. There,
anyways, let's talk about this team and more general stuff. This team has a really good backbone, and obviously, you might be seeing a trend here that teams with the stronger defensive cores are being higher, but that's just what happens in draft. You got to have that versatility, especially in 11 mon. You might be able to get away with less versatile teams in 8 mon, but in 11 mon, if you don't have that versatility, your team's just worse.
yeah, it's really hard to be able to, especially with all the good mons that are in the format now. It's really hard to be able to prep for all of it, but having as many mons as possible in order to be able to win a game is, especially defensively, it's very good to have.
Yeah, I mean, if we just go down the list of like actual good switch-ins here on this team, we have Zama Crowned, Zapdos Slowking, Decidueye Muck, Mudsdale, Gudra. That is a whole team of
And
like actual
they're
good
all
switch-ins.
viable. There's not a really big drop off. I mean, obviously, some are going to be a lot better than others, but they're still like all very good. It's not going to be a situational mon.
Yeah, and that's without me mentioning Colossal and Articuno, which are honestly perfectly viable and could come to games.
Yeah.
So I think this team is just going to be able to use its backbone to outlast opponents, especially down in Wooper, where I think some teams might be a little overzealous and trying to just win the game really fast. I think this is going to be able to really utilize its its bulk to withstand that, and then probably just Zamazenta teams as well, which is obviously something that could happen as well.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm not looking forward to going against this team.
In terms of hazard control, I don't think Zapdos gets defog anymore, but I believe
No,
we
yeah,
have
I'm pretty sure the birds lost it.
I,
So after,
we have Decidueye though, and we have Colossal, which I think is plenty, to be honest with you.
yeah,
And in terms of setting up our own, also not incredible, but we have Mudsdale, Colossal, and Lycanroc, which also good enough. I'd imagine one or two of those are going to come to every game. So
yeah. Yeah, overall, just a very solid team. Obviously, primarily based on its defense, but they'll be able to bounce off of that and offensively, or bounce off of that defense to its offense.
exactly. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2, where we have Shadow Time. And honestly, Shadow Time was really close to being number 1.
Shadow Time was one for a cool minute. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, and it's easy to see why with the breaking power that this team has when you also combine that with the defense that this team has. We have Tornadus T, Garchomp, Iron Hands, and Zoroark in terms of breaking power, which is one of the best breaking like cores, I guess. And also you have some win conditions there as well. Um,
Yeah.
and then you combine that with Torrentee and Garchomp also having incredible bulk. Slowbro, Zarude, Iron Hands also having incredible bulk. And then you also have Diancie later on, also has incredible bulk. It's easy to see why this team was so high.
Yeah, that top six, just like on both sides, but mainly offensively, it's gonna be so hard to prep for because just I don't know what can take hits from Garchomp plus hands, plus like Specs Zoro. It's gonna be really hard.
Yeah,
Teams
and
are gonna struggle against this team for sure.
let's not forget about Tornadus T being able to tear flying in just Bleak Wind Storm or Hurricane. What's
That thing doesn't have eyes, bro. It's fine.
Yes, it's true, but if it hits,
If it does hit, that's some major damage right there.
for sure. But the reason this team fell is obviously lack of removal. It's really shit. Um, and, and when I say it fell from 1 to 2, just
Yeah,
because we think that the top, I guess that is 7 Mons. It's just really really incredible, and then even Ursaring, Dunsparce, and Masquerain, I think they all can come to a game. To be honest, so
yeah. There's viability in every single mod on this team.
yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's honestly really important. And one of the major points we've been hammering home this whole time is that having viability across the whole team instead of just a few mons is really important.
Yeah. And last but not least,
We have the man himself. Dylan, tell me about your team and why you are ranked #1.
all right. So me personally, and Fate will be the first to agree with this. I had my team second, maybe third, because I genuinely did think Kairak and Shadow had better teams. But upon further review, the lack of hazards or hazard removal just it seemed to be just slightly in my favor. But I would say my top, what is that, 5 Mons with Valiant, Luna, Rotomosh, Hydreigon, Quaquaval. It's just offensively, it's gonna be really hard for anybody to prep for that because my Valiant is a monster in itself. Luna, Flame Orb, AV options, and they can all, or at least then you have the Rotomosh, Hydreigon, Quaquaval, Mesprit, and I believe Hisui might be able to pivot as well. So it's I personally, and then my only thing with my team is the lack of options for a fairy type. Like an Enamorus or any strong fairy does kind of run through this team, even with the Reverie being there, just because it's the only check I got for it.
Yeah,
But I know Fate has a lot more to say about my team.
yeah. So, honestly, what I would say about this team is that um, you were able to put together 10 Mons that I deem bringable, and I'd say 8 viable, 10 bringable Mons, which most other teams like don't even touch that level of versatility. But when you combine that with the strong level of, I guess, just the absolute dominance of Mons like Valiant, Ursaluna, and Quaquaval, um, it's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, I personally do like this. This is one of the better teams I have built, but as I'm very aware myself, I don't know if Fate has made you guys aware of this, but I'm great at building teams. I can't prep with them, and I can't play with them. So, despite how good this team is, it's still going to take a lot
Yeah,
for it to.
I mean, additionally, with the offense you have here with Valiant, Ursa, Hydreigon, and Quaquaval, you combine that with pretty good bulk as well. Obviously, Luna is quite bulky. Rotom is quite bulky. Hydreigon, it can be pretty bulky as well. Mesprit, obviously bulky. And Brady Hisui also can be pretty bulky. So I just think that you were able to craft this bulky offense team that most teams do not touch in terms of viability. I do think Shadow Times would be better if he had like the slightest bit of hazard, like
Yeah,
control and removal. But I just think this is the best team.
yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Um, so I think that well, actually, let's touch on the speed tiers here because I heard a little something. I heard a
Oh
little.
yeah,
I heard a
so
little. I heard a little rumbling about Dylan's team not being fast enough, and personally, I think that's very wrong. Obviously, Iron Valiant 116 speed, which is that speed level, like around 115, is probably fast enough in Scarlet and Violet to begin with, right? But when you combine that with Valiant being able to run booster energy and boosted speed, um, and still switch moves, it's it's a non-factor, to be honest. Speed is the non-factor, and then obviously Hydreigon is also a really good Scarfer, and has been a really good Scarfer for a long time. So
And
I
not to mention the Quaquaval Aqua Step.
yeah, I don't think speed is an issue, and I don't think you're gonna have an issue revenge killing things.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know who said it, but we just heard some rumblings about it.
Yeah,
So
we've heard rumblings, so I just wanted to mention that.
need
But
to clarify a little bit.
I think that's it for the PRs.
That is it for the Wooper PRs. Now stay on the lookout because we do have 2 other divisions we
Yeah, I
may
mean,
or may not do PRs for.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure those PRs will come out, before the season's over at some point. So
Yeah, it might be what, week 8.
it might be week 8.
but,
It might be week 8. Anyways,
but
thank
yeah,
you guys for watching the video. Like it if you like it, and subscribe for more. And we'll catch you guys.
peace.